Hello, everybody. This is Jimmy Fasig again, and I am super excited to present to you one of the greatest comeback stories that I have actually ever heard. And that is no exaggeration. You are going to really love this. I'm going to introduce you to a really phenomenal person, Magie Cook. She speaks for herself, so I don't want to tell too much of her story before she actually gets into telling the story. But I will share with you this. We have been talking all week about what she's done. Magie is a Mexican immigrant. She was in an orphanage. She came to America and she had literally, I think it was 200 brothers and sisters or 68 brothers and sisters at one time. So, I mean, she has had such an interesting life, and she overcame so many challenges to eventually create a company called Magie Salsa, which is a salsa like the kind you dip your taco chips in. And she eventually sold that company, I think it was 2013, for $231 million. That's $231 million. What an amazing comeback story, Magie. Welcome, and thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here today.
Well, I'm beyond excited about your story, and I just have some questions that I think that everybody that is listening really wants to know. I want to just dive right into it. And the first thing that I want to ask you is, out of all the lessons going from orphanage to multimillionaire, out of all the lessons that you have learned, what do you think is the most important thing that you've learned along the way?
The most important thing that I think that I learned is being resourceful. And that is using my inner resources to achieve the things that I wanted to achieve in life. And even there at the orphanage, you know, I had to become resourceful because sometimes we didn't have food for several weeks. And so I became a hunter, and I was hunting small prey from, you know, jumping out of trees at night with spotlights. As a matter of fact, this is my original knife that I used to hunt with.
Oh my gosh.
I still have it. I take it when I speak. I don't take it when I fly because I might go to prison and I might need your services.
Well, we wouldn't want that, because every time someone hires me, it's bad news. But so tell us about that knife. You literally had to hunt for your own food with that particular. What kind of food would you hunt for?
So we hunted for armadillo. I'm sorry to say, but we used to hunt for iguana, and we hunted for what do you call? It's like a big lizard.
Okay.
I don't know what's it called in English.
Iguana.
Iguana. Oh yeah, iguana. Yes, I'm sorry. And just small deer, because the deer that we had was smaller. And what we would do is, if you know, we would wait for it like when the moon was not out, and so it would be like pitch black, and so we would throw a net over the animal with a spotlight, because they would be like this, and then we would just jump on it and do the deed and skin it and cook it in the woods and eat it.
And that's what you had to do to eat. That's what you had to do to survive.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let me ask you this. And eventually, so that was while you were in Mexico, living in the orphanage in Mexico?
Yes.
And how did you eventually come to the United States?
So I grew up in this remote place in Michoacan, in the mountains of Michoacan. And all throughout my childhood, I always felt like I wanted to become something better and do something more than what I was seeing there. And I was always looking for ways of figuring out something or finding something that I would become super good at and become a success with it. And when I was in junior high, I remember passing by the principal's office, which was like a little 5x8 brick building, and he had a small TV in the top, and it was a really long one with black and white. And I saw Michael Jordan play, and I asked if I could come during my breaks and watch Michael Jordan play, and he said, yeah. So just from watching that, I learned some basketball moves, and basketball had just become sort of the thing.
Okay.
And so I would go back to the orphanage and I would practice in the dirt court. And eventually I practiced with a cover in my eyes. And
Uh-huh.
I actually had one of my adopted brothers, his name was Pancho. He had spinal bifida. He couldn't walk. We found him on a dumpster because his parents or something happened. They threw him away. Um, so how we grew up is they would pair us up. When I was little, they would pair us up with an adult. And when I was an adult, that we would pair up with a little kid to help grow ourselves up. And so I had that week, one week I had Pancho, and Pancho, I had to carry him in my back wherever I went. So I had
Uh-huh.
this brilliant idea, and I said, Pancho, why don't you do something? You want to play with me? And he said, yes. And so I said, I'm going to cover my eyes. And whenever I get to the edge of the court, you're going to tell me stop and turn. And so I got really good at playing basketball and
So
in
you're
drills
literally
and
with a blindfold on.
yes, and he would just tell me stop, turn whenever I would get close to the. And I would remember I would visualize all these people coming towards me trying to steal the ball, and I would dribble between my legs behind my back, and became so good that by the time I graduated high school, we were champions. We were state or champions of the whole area, the whole region. And the Mexican national team somehow heard of me, and they recruited to me to play basketball for them for the Mexican national team in Mexico City. I'm only 5'2", so I gotta tell you that
My
I guess
God.
they saw that I was fast and okay for them to consider me. So
Dude,
we
five
were
foot two, the national team for basketball. That is
yes.
fantastic. So for those of you who are just joining us, we're talking to Maggie Cook. Maggie Cook, who is the author of Mindful Success from Orphan to Millionaire. And I think it should be from orphan to multi-millionaire because she sold there's her book right there. She sold her salsa company for $231 million in 2013. And she wrote the book so that everybody else like you and me can gain the benefit of the lessons that she learned in her life. So Maggie, that is so awesome. So you became on the national team for basketball, and then what happened?
So I waited for them to call me back for 3 months, and somehow we got introduced to American football,
Okay.
and we were playing in the fields, and one of my adopted brothers, Julio, threw me a really long pass, and I caught it in the air, and it was beautiful, and I went down with my shoulder. I ended up breaking my collarbone, and I went to our caregiver who was a doctor, and he stretched me back, and it was so painful, and he told me that my dreams were over.
Your dreams of being a basketball player.
Mm-hmm. And so 3 days later, the Mexican national team called, and I couldn't go, and that's when it really hit me. But I always believe that when something bad happens to you, there must be something better. So I
Yes.
kind of ingrained this mentality of, I believe that there's got to be something better, and just have the hope for it and just to focus on that.
Yes.
So about 4 months later, 4 to 6 months later, our caregivers took a school bus to the States, to the United States, to travel in different states to raise funds for the orphanage. And we got invited on a picnic to a picnic in West Virginia. And when we pulled up, there was a basketball court outside, and there was a basketball. So my brothers and I ran really quickly, grabbed the ball, and started to play. And there happened to be the coach of the University of Charleston. She saw me play, and she asked my caregiver if I could come to play basketball on a scholarship. And let me tell you, if I would have listened to my caregiver, to your dreams are over, I probably wouldn't have played that day.
Wow.
But because I had I changed the way that I was looking at things, and a different mindset and different mentality. That's the only reason I'm here speaking with you and with everybody today. And that's really the only reason I'm here today, because of that.
So let's unpack that really quickly. Unpack the lesson from that. The lesson being, if I understand correctly, the lesson basically being, you don't listen to the people that are you don't necessarily even want to listen to the people that love you the most, because they're not necessarily experts in what you want to do. Tell me, you share with me in your own words, what was the lesson you unpacked from that experience, where essentially your caregiver told you you were done playing basketball, but you didn't listen to that, and you ultimately why don't you just share it in your own words?
Well, the caregiver, which happened to be an expert, which was a doctor.
Oh, what? Right. I got you.
So he told me that. So an expert telling you that your dreams are over, if a doctor tells you that you're going to die or something, the biggest lesson that I learned is what people tell you and you believe that and you subconsciously make that yours, then it becomes manifest.
Yes.
And so it really, our jobs is not to let anything move us from what we want our purpose, our ultimate outcome to be, and just stay focused and present and keep on the road that we hope to be in, and great unbelievable miracles begin to happen in our lives.
Yes, I wholeheartedly agree. It's all about staying focused. That's why I'm such a big proponent of the master goal, and creating a master goal that is kind of your compass as you go through in life. So what Maggie, for you, was your biggest goal at that point in your life? You wanted to be a basketball player?
Yes.
Okay, and then what happened from there? You got basically a scholarship?
Yes. So I ended up going to the University of Charleston in West Virginia, and I graduated with a degree in interior design. But what happened was that in the state of West Virginia, there was only 2 companies, I believe, at that time that were interior design firms, and I went looking for jobs and I couldn't get hired. So I literally just started living out of my car, and
Wow.
and then my car engine exploded. So I was living in the woods and in the streets, but I didn't even know I was homeless, because that's how I lived in the orphanage. And the one thing for sure is that I did not want to go back where I came from. And the one thing that became my goal was my fire, was that my caregiver told me that I would never amount to anything, that I would die in prison and with AIDS, his exact words.
Oh my
And
God.
that's because I came out to him as gay, and so I didn't want his dream to be his prophecy to be fulfilled, and my goal was to prove him wrong, and that was my fire.
Oh my, I just have to stop you right there. I'm so happy that you mentioned that, Maggie. First of all, for anybody that just tuned in, we're talking to Magie Cook. She is the author of the book, Mindful Success: From Orphan to Millionaire. And she is telling her story of how she went from literally an orphanage where she had to go kill her own food with the knife that she just showed us, with that very knife, and then eventually built a company to where she sold that company for $231 million. So Maggie, what I love about what you just said, that I just want to emphasize, this is so important, is that the pain that we experience in life can become the fire that fuels us to succeed. And that's exactly what happened for you, right? I'm so excited that you mentioned that. Okay, would you please go on with your story? I'm not going to interrupt that much more.
So what I didn't realize, it was great. It was a great place for me to move forward. But what happened was, when he passed, I didn't have anybody to prove anything wrong. So my new why changed, and it changed much later in life. But what happened when I was homeless was that somebody who was a cook at the university found me on the street, sleeping on the street, and she was just so freaked out about it. And he says, what are you doing? And so she got me a place to stay. And within literally a couple of weeks, I got entered into a salsa competition for the state of West Virginia. The reason why is because when I was in college, I had a lot of my friends I would make the pico de gallo for,
Yeah.
and they would love it so much that they would tell my teachers, and my teachers would ask me to bring it to class, and so it was very popular. So I entered this salsa contest, and there's a lot of competitors there, but most of their products were, well, all of their products were cooked salsas,
Uh-huh.
jarred
Yeah.
salsas, and mine was fresh. Well, I
Hmm.
blew the competition. I got first place unanimously by vote, and at that place, I remember people were coming to me and asking me, "Where can we buy this stuff? Where do you sell it?" And I was telling them, I don't have, I don't sell it. I don't have anything. And so the really cool thing that happened at that event, there was a guy that was standing to my left. And I don't know if you've ever felt this, but when somebody's really looking at you and you can feel that energy. So
Yes.
he was looking at me. And by the time kind of everything died down, he came over and he told me, he says, I don't know. I know that you don't know who I am, but I wanted to do something for you in one condition. He said, as long as someday you pay it forward. And he pulled $800 out of his wallet. And that was how I started my company.
Unbelievable. So you started this company with $800 that was given to you by a complete stranger.
Yes.
I can't tell you. So Maggie, we do at Basic Works, we do comeback stories. We have a show that I told you about with regards to comeback stories. And one of the things that I've always noticed when every time we're doing these comeback stories, there's almost always somebody that shows some kindness, and just one small act of kindness that changes everything, and that is really the pivotal point or a pivotal point in the person's story. And so that's so exciting that that happened to you. $800, and he didn't even know you. He didn't ask for anything in return except for you pay it forward.
Yeah.
Wow, that is so awesome.
I think
Okay,
it's
so
because he saw my
one,
fire.
you've won a competition. You know you've got some good salsa. Somebody believes in you enough to hand you $800. And then what next? What was your next step in building this awesome company?
So when that happened, that was my aha moment. I thought, maybe I do have something here. So
Mhm.
I
Okay,
didn't know anything about business, and Google was literally my only research source. And
great.
I started just doing research. And I remember I did the pros and cons of starting a salsa company. And if the pros were greater than the cons, then I would go forward. And that's how it started. And I started basically doing everything myself. I did my own product labels. I did my own packaging. Well, I bought the packaging, but I created my own website. I got my truck driver's license.
Oh,
Um, so everything, I learned how to buy wholesale from companies and start making the product to start turning a profit.
okay. So what did you do with that first $800?
The first thing that I did was I bought a food processor. It was about this big.
Wow.
And I bought the food processor and I bought produce to make the product. And I sold my first 5 containers. And then whatever I made from that, I reinvested it, and I kept making more and more and selling it. And I sold a container for $5 to friends. And that's
Wow.
really how it started.
So you literally start making the salsa. You just bought the containers somewhere, and you probably didn't even have labels for it or anything like that.
At first, no. At first, no.
Labels, and you were making this out of your house, your apartment. Where were you living at the time?
I was living in an apartment with somebody, so I was using that kitchen, and then I learned about FDA regulations, so I had to comply with those, and so that's when it really started to grow a little bit more.
Wow.
But the biggest step was really scaling it, and that's when I really had to get a kitchen. I had to rent a kitchen locally to start turning more product around to sell it to supermarkets. But the very first thing I remember I did is I created a really long list of stores to call, and I categorized them from the smallest to the largest.
Okay.
And the first, it was so nerve wracking. I'd never picking up the phone and just called people. And
Mm-hmm.
I was so afraid, and it was so devastating because I've never gotten so many no's. Like, we don't want your products. What is fresh salsa? What are you talking about? And I just kept pushing through and pushing through. And at that point, I felt like giving up, but then I felt like, what if I change the way that I'm doing this?
Yes.
And I gave myself a day. And instead of calling supermarkets, I called local companies that had ready to eat products like salads, the coleslaw and stuff like that. And they told me, no, no, I asked, how did you get into the supermarkets? And they said, well, it's took us 5 years to get one product in the store. They're not going to listen to you. You're nobody. And I was like, you're right about that. And so I just went back to the list and I decided, you know what? I'm just going to go for the big dogs. And since I've categorized the list from the smallest to the largest, at the very bottom of my list was the Whole Foods Market, which is the largest organic retailer, as you know. And I turned the list upside down. I called them and I said, hey, my name is Maria Magdalena de la Cruz Garcia. I have an awesome pico de gallo de salsa. I think you guys would love it. And I left a message, and the next day, I got a call. I was
Oh,
parked, I was parked in the city center.
oh my
And,
God.
I was
From
parked
Whole
in a,
Foods?
I was parked in a Honda Civic, and I got a call, and the guy says, "Is this Maggie?" I said, "Yes." He says, "This is Eric with Whole Foods. He's the main buyer for the whole entire Mid Atlantic area." And I was like,
Oh, Lord.
and he said, "We heard about you. We want to know more about," because at that time I had already put my website up. He says, "We heard
Yes.
about you. We want to know more. When can you come?" And I said, "When would you like me to come?" He says, "Well, we meet tomorrow at 9 a.m." And I was in West Virginia. This was in Maryland. So I said, I'll be there. And I literally went back to the kitchen, made salsa, drove all night long, got there and just in time, and walked in with my little heels and my dress and my salsa boxes and my chips. And there's a room of uh, all these buyers sitting on the U table.
Oh,
And I was
wow.
like, oh my gosh. And so I opened the salsa boxes, and they opened the products and started to eat them. And they were just like, oh my gosh. Eric
Wow.
gets up and he says, when can we have this product? And I said, well, how much do you want? And he says, well, your first order would be 10,000 pounds of salsa.
Oh my
Like,
God.
that's 1 ton of salsa.
And you must have freaked out. You're like, how am I going to make 10,000 pounds of salsa? That is insane.
And
That is
so,
so exciting. And
yes.
and so what did you do? How did you respond?
Well, at that time, I was making about 250 pounds of salsa for friends. And I
Yeah.
had grown my company to, I had actually made about $12,000.
Wow.
And I was just reinvesting it. And so uh, I said, yes, let me go back and figure out how I'm going to do this, because at the time the banks wouldn't loan me money because I didn't have any credit and I didn't have anything to show for. And so I had this idea and say, why don't I just ask Whole Foods if they will give me a contract so that I can show that they'll pay me and I can borrow the money from people that I know. And so I did that. I got a contract and I showed my friends and I said, look, it's Whole Foods. They'll pay me in a week. I need
Yeah.
20 grand for cost of goods sold. And will you let me borrow the money? And they said yes. So I borrowed that money. Within a
Wow.
week, Whole Foods paid me $40,000.
Oh my
And
God.
I gave back the $20,000, and then I reinvested the rest. And then the rest is history. Really went from making 12 grand that year to just with Whole Foods, ended up making $1.9 million.
Oh my gosh. That very next year?
That very next year. And the thing is, their
Oh,
product, they really priced their products for quality at that time for me really high. So I was making more than what I was selling to friends
oh my
with very
goodness.
little markup.
Wow, that is incredible. And so what happened after that? So then you go, now you make $1.9 million. And then did you start expanding beyond Whole Foods to different stores? And
Well, what happened was that all the stores that said no to me, they started calling me. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what happens when you break the mold and
Yeah.
people are hearing. Now you're in Whole Foods. I got
Uh-huh.
people contacted me. I didn't call them. And so a lot of the thing was that is as soon as people tried the product, they loved it. So they spread the word. And so I had people tell me that they would go to the supermarkets and tell the buyers, you need to put our salsa in the shelves. And so they would call me, and that's really how it grew.
Wow, that is so fantastic. All right, that is an absolutely incredible story. So let's go backwards though and start unpacking some of the lessons that you learned. First of all, how do you look at, now that you have the bird's eye view of everything that you've been through, how do you look back upon your time as an orphan where you were killing your own food, and your time as a homeless person? What is your thought process, or how do you feel about those times in your life?
Well, the biggest thing that I felt, I'll give you a perfect example. I bought my first nice car.
Okay.
It was a BMW Z4 hardtop convertible.
Love it.
And I
Love.
remember driving it out of the lot and feeling so unworthy. And I was
uh,
telling myself, I don't deserve this. I was in the orphanage. I didn't have any. I have chills just telling you this. And
oh
but the really cool thing that happened was that there was a semi tractor trailer that passed me, and one of his tires exploded and hit my car. And I was like, somebody's telling me to wake up, and I was like, I love this car. I am worthy. I deserve it. Nothing happened to the car, but that was constructive criticism from the universe, I believe, from God, telling me, wake up. You are worthy. You're more than what you think you are. And
yeah.
so that was one of the biggest lessons that I got from that. And then just appreciation, gratitude for what you have every single day. Grateful for, having a bed to sleep in, the small things, having the ability to do the things that I do, having the ability to touch people's lives with a product that, from here to California to Florida to Canada, to different states. So just the appreciation of that, that's the biggest thing. I think, feeling, and a lot of us women have a tendency to feel unworthy, like we're not
Yeah.
enough or good enough. And
Uh-huh.
that was my greatest learning lesson there.
Is that you are worthy. And I love that story about the getting hit in the car as a wake-up call, because I really believe that the universe, God, is always sending us messages, trying to wake us up to our own inner power. Always, every single day. And that is part of our purpose for being here on this earth. And so I love the fact that you take those signs and you take that to heart, because I do the same thing. I'm listening. I'm waiting. If I stub my toe, I say, oh, well, maybe my thought process was wrong at that moment. The universe is trying to get my attention. Why? What is it? And I look around and I try to see what it is. That is really, really exciting. The other thing is that the reason why I asked you that is in my own life. I look back, as I've told you, I went to prison for 2.5 years. And so I think frequently about my time in prison, which was a very painful time in my life, probably similar to when you were homeless or when you were living in the orphanage. And I look back at it now, and I'm extremely grateful for it. And I've got this sense of gratitude, because if I hadn't gone through that, just like you said, I wouldn't have the appreciation for where I am now. And I think that is also one of the main purposes in life. So how would you say gratitude for you, um, uh, how would you say gratitude manifests in your life, and what kind of a role does it play in your life?
Well, every single day I find things to be grateful for. I actually have a journal that I shared with you previously with your group, and I write the one thing that I'm grateful for today. Um, Not only for the journal, but the first thing that I do when I wake up is I have these incantations that I say to myself, and I say them right before I go to bed and when I wake up. But aside from that, I
Wait, wait,
just
wait. Would you please share with us are they affirmations?
incantations.
Incantations. Okay, gotcha. Okay. And so, and these are just incantations about what you want to happen, kind of thing.
Yes. Yes.
Okay,
Like, for
gotcha.
example, one is the wealth of the universe is flowing over my life. Its wealth
Uh,
flows through me in cosmic waves of abundance. All my needs, desires, and goals are manifested instantly by infinite conscious mind. I am one with everything. That's one of them.
I love it. I absolutely love it. I absolutely love it. Man, that says there is so much jam-packed in what you just said. And then the very end, I am one with everything. I love that. That is in my book. I have the last final chapters in my book are about what they call unity consciousness. And that is exactly what we're talking about. That is really, really cool. Okay, so gratitude is you do the incantations. You're grateful every day of your life. Let me ask you this. This is what I think a lot of people want to know, because look, you came from very, very hard beginnings, very, very challenging beginnings. I mean, you're 5'2" and you become a basketball, you get a scholarship for basketball. You're a Mexican immigrant, orphanage, homeless, and you end up with a huge company that you sold. How did you find the inner strength to do that? What motivated you? Was it the fire of the person that told you you couldn't do it? Is that that and anything else? What else did you have that was motivating you?
Well, I think that, it's interesting because a lot of people ask me, you know, how did you do it? Because a lot of people would have ended up in jail or dead or in some drugs or something, different. And I think that it's character, and my character was built at the orphanage out of the need for survival. That's why I say that everything that ever happens to you, it it's only for a reason and a purpose, and it makes you who you are, stronger as a person. And so definitely I believe that my character was built there. I had the need to be tough and strong so that I wouldn't be, for example, sexually abused by all the other guys like all the other girls were,
Yes.
which it came close to me, but I was able to defend myself. Um, but I
Wow.
think that character and that willingness to be something else than just a plain old defenseless little girl, that I think I carry that with me, and throughout my life, and especially born, I think, there in the orphanage with the hardships.
Sure. And so that gave you the hunger, that gave you the fire. Did you have to overcome or in what way did you have to overcome insecurity and self-doubt? And how did you deal with that?
Well, we have self-doubt. I'm very much human like anybody else, and
Yeah.
I doubt myself so many times. I felt like I wanted to quit many times in my business because nobody would help me. It was so hard. I couldn't get the resources outside of me to help me. And you doubt yourself. But
Yes.
I think that the perseverance part, the
Mm-hmm.
persistence part pays off. You have breakthroughs. And when you are persistent, the breakthrough is the inspiration. So if
Mm-hmm.
you focus on the breakthrough, in the inspiration, then that fuels the fire to create more breakthroughs. And
Mm-hmm.
always seeing a problem as an opportunity, because I can
Yes.
see a problem and say, my world's ending, everything's over. Or I can see there's a problem. What's the opportunity that I see here? And how can I use this to create
Yes.
something new or better that I
Yes.
can help myself and help others with?
Absolutely 100%. I'm a big believer that every failure, every disappointment, every setback is an opportunity for us to reevaluate and start again wiser and stronger. So at some point, at any point in your process, were you at the point where you thought that the business was going to go under, that you were going to fail? Yes.
Many
Okay.
times, many
Many,
points.
many. Okay. And how did you push through those times?
I think that, it was mindset, really mindset. And
Yes.
I actually created a program around it. And what I did to overcome those things. See, if my focus is achievement and my goal, then I'm going to rule out any other possibility of fear or failure, because fear and love cannot coexist at the same time in the body.
Right.
So you either choose one or the other. So what are you going to focus on? Every
Yes.
single day, I actually have a gut check. I check my gut I'm very mindful about it. If I feel something's off or wrong, I ask what it is. The
Yeah.
answer comes because I'm conscious about it. I'm mindful about it. And
Mindful.
yes, and I'm able to turn that around in 30 to 90 seconds. And it's not the end of the world, no matter what you're going through. You're still alive and breathing, no matter what happened, no matter how bad something is. You know, you
Yeah.
still have this gift, you still have this life. And what's the focus? What do you choose to focus on? That's the biggest thing.
Why did you title your book Mindful Success? Tell us what you mean by that.
Because I wanted to throughout my life to create how to use my mind to transform my life. And if I knew that I could focus, because when I was in the orphanage, I remember I used to see myself as this grown-up person with a suit, heels, behind the mahogany desk with long hair. If you choose to focus on those things, then I was happy. And all the suffering melted away, no matter what was going on throughout my whole life in the orphanage. As a matter of fact, I if you go on my website, maggiecook.com, I have a video there, and I show the cave that I dug and that I used to live in.
Oh my gosh.
And that was my secret hiding place. And this knife had a role in it too,
Wow.
carving the cave. And it was built in a canyon, so it was really hard for you to walk to get to it. So nobody found it for years until people knew about it. And there was like a little thing where people like adventured to. But it was my secret hiding place to have some peace and just thinking and visualizing that I was a superhero or this different person that I wasn't when I was there, because the struggle was very difficult.
I absolutely love everything that you're saying. First of all, I want to mention this part of your story where you went on the basketball court and were blindfolded, and then from practicing like that, you were able to really improve your skills in basketball. I feel like that is it may be part of where you could tell me if I'm wrong here, but basically part of where you learn the power of visualization and the power of using your imagination. And then you're talking about how you used to visualize yourself with the suit on and with the long hair and all that. And I love this because what you're saying is exactly what I am trying to promote out there, which is this: your focus, where you choose to focus your attention is going to determine where you end up in life. And it's a constant every single moment of every day you have the possibility. You have a couple of possibilities. You can focus on your dream and where you want to go, or you can focus on what you don't want and what you don't want in your life. And so how were you able to how did you figure this out? Because it seems like you kind of figured that out at a young age. How did this come about for you, where you realized that visualizing was powerful, that it had that there was strength in it?
You know, I didn't realize what I was doing until I read it in books later here in America when I came. I think that all of us, as beautiful, amazing, powerful spiritual beings, have access to infinite intelligence.
Yes.
And if we are focused on the things that we want in that energy, I think things become available, and you just do things by following your hopes and dreams. And the biggest thing that I'm going to tell you there is that, and one of the things that I teach in one of my courses is, one thing is to have goals and visions and visioning, which create great progress. But another thing is having inspired action. And I didn't know I was doing this, but I was doing inspired action in that basketball court with my blindfold, visualizing. I was acting in inspiration to become, and seeing all these people attacking me, or not attacking. In Spanish, dice atacar, when they come to get the ball from you.
Yes.
And so that's inspired action. You know, when I wanted to buy my first nice vehicle, I went to the dealership. I printed out $1 million bill and I said, I want to drive that car. And the guy looked at me weird. He says, okay. So I drove this Mercedes convertible for a whole day and I felt the car. I felt the wind in my, and I felt and I smelled it and I felt the engine just like I visualized. That's inspired action. That
Yes.
car was in my lot within 3 months, and my family that saw my vision, my action boards, they're like, "Oh my gosh, you had that, and we visited you, and you have it down there." And they're like, my brother was having chills, and it's really powerful and amazing if you apply certain things. And I think for me is that all this stuff is available, and I just happen to do some of these things and discover new things that I've implemented to make the manifestation even stronger, which is
Yes.
really awesome.
Yes. So I want to talk about I want to talk about what you just said about infinite intelligence. And I think there are a lot of words that people use for it, but I think essentially essentially some people say, you know, getting messages from the universe, others pray and they say it's messages from God, but I think essentially it's just opening yourself up to receiving the answers from wherever it's coming from. And I think that part of that process is asking the right questions, and then sitting in silence. Are you into meditation at all?
Yes, that's my course is called Meditation Creator.
Oh,
I
okay.
I help
Right.
people create their own affirmations and goals clearly and specifically, and they turn them into their custom meditations with music, powerful music, and emotions, the six senses, everything. And that's how I manifested my stuff, and so that's what I teach. Absolutely.
I love it. I love it. And so would you mind just sharing with us how you meditate? What is your method for meditation? I guess there's probably probably a lot of different methods, but what is your favorite method for meditating? And what
Well,
benefit do you feel you get out of it?
well, first of all, I want to say that meditation is not equal, it's not the same for everybody. Everybody is different. That's why in my program I encourage people to discover, although I teach the methods, to discover what is best for them, because some people are visual, some
Right.
people are auditory, some
Mm.
people, touch. So I have a client who can't meditate, so she does it differently, and it's super amazing. And she's already manifested something with a Grammy, with Hollywood. I mean, unbelievable within like a couple of weeks. And so the way that I meditate, um, I can tell you how I meditate, but it's really like up to each person. The
I see.
biggest thing is calming your monkey brain, the chatter
Uh-huh.
in your brain. It is really silencing that, and there's a method for that, to the point where you're just, there's just you, and you feel empowered and you feel amazing, and there's just silence. And then the
Hmm.
visualization that comes, because when I meditate, I'm listening to my custom meditation that I created. So all of my
Hmm.
affirmations are there, but I go through a process of centering with the universe and the energy of all that is,
Hmm.
and being surrounded by light, and having light coming through my body from my head to my toes,
Oh, wow.
and then the silencing of the mind, and then starting the meditations, which is something that's spoken with powerful music, because I've learned that uh, emotion is really powerful manifester. And
So
so there's tricks and
do you talk about how to meditate in your book?
I do. I talk about the different types of meditation. There's a chapter where I talk about how I used to go into my 20,000 square foot plant, salsa facility. And I used,
Yeah.
before anybody got there, and I would open my arms in the middle of the plant, and I would just visualize this light coming through me and surrounding every product, all my
Wow.
team members, and every person that touched that product in any state, just
I
going
love
out
it.
of me. Just and so that was one of my meditations that I did when I was growing my company. And it's really cool, because I had team members that worked with me, and they discover I had a book. Oh my gosh, I read your book, and they were quoting my book to me, and talking about how it was helping them with all this kind of stuff. And I really thought that was really amazing, because I feel like the energy that you have as a CEO, as an owner.
Yes.
I'm very honest. I tell companies when I speak, I say, if your culture sucks, it's because the leadership sucks. It's that, because everything emanates from you and it's felt,
Yes.
everything. And so when you have that energy and when you have that care and I had my mom that I grew up with in the orphanage, and she came to visit one time and she was in my office, and then one of my team members came in, knocked on the door. His name was Lonnie, and said, Maggie, I have something to tell you. I said, sure, come on. And he touched me by the shoulder. He says, I just want you to know that somebody threw beer bottles at the brick wall in the plant outside, and I just picked them up for you. Okay. I picked them up. And I said, thank you so much, Lonnie. And I gave him a hug. And then he went back to work, and my mom was like, they really care for you. And I said,
Wow.
that is a real family. That's what I told my mother. That
Wow.
is a real family.
Yes.
And it's a culture that you build, but everything starts with you.
Yes.
Everything emanates from you. So everything that you do, that's why I made my team members thinking managers, thinking CEOs. What would Maggie do, with that energy? And so I could be away from my company for months, and it would be running perfectly because I had that energy already, all over.
You just made a very good point that I want to emphasize, and that is everything, literally everything does start with you. And let's face it, we are the CEOs of our own life. You are a CEO right now. Anybody listening right now, you are the CEO of your own life, and everything starts with you. That is such a powerful, powerful thing to say. So, so Maggie, let me ask you this: if you had the opportunity to go back and talk to your former self before you started the salsa company, when you were homeless, when you were destitute, when you were going through the most challenging times of your life, what would you say? What would you say?
I've actually done that practice, and
Okay.
I've started with my childhood,
Okay.
and I done it in meditation, and I extend my hand to the younger me, and I say, I love you. And I just hold her and I just tell her everything's going to be okay. And it's very powerful because, and I do say, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, and I love you. It's the Haponopono Prayer. And it's very powerful because I can see myself and I can feel myself as the little kid, and I can see myself as the little kid looking at the bigger me, and she's got me and I've got her. And it's so powerful because you have so much, you are so much more than what you think you are, and you are so powerful. To me,
Wow.
that's so real because
Wow.
I was able to connect in a way. It almost feels like if I was that little girl, I knew that a bigger me was looking after me. And now
Wow.
that I'm a grown-up person, I can say, I've got you. You were never alone.
Oh my God. I love it. I absolutely love it. What I would love to add to that is I think that, first of all, that is incredibly powerful. But I would also say that that remember when 18-year-old kid and I was working at Burger King in the mornings or McDonald's in the morning and Burger King at night, and it was my car was breaking down. It was a horrible nightmare, and I was really insecure and had a lot of self-doubt. And that person still lives inside of me. And that little girl still lives inside of you too. And I think one of the most powerful things that I do for myself every day, many, many times a day, is I tell myself I love myself. And so when you said that struck a chord for me big time. And whenever I start to feel self-doubt or self-loathing or to second guess what I've done or even just feel bad about myself or whatever, automatically I say, I love you. And I'm talking to myself. And sometimes it just pops out of my mouth. My wife will tell you that. She's like, "You talking to me? Or you?" but that's it's part of my healing process, and it's part of who I am now, because that self-love has given me the power to actually really believe in myself. So thank you so much for sharing that. That is fantastic. I do want to mention for anybody that is listening that we have the ability to make some comments. And so if you want to comment, and if you have any questions, if you have any questions for Maggie, Maggie would be happy to answer them. This is being recorded, so you're going to be able to see it over and over again. I think there's so many lessons to unpack from this. So I'm just very, very, very thrilled. So when we started this, Maggie, I asked you, what was the one biggest lesson out of all that you've been through? I said, what is the one biggest lesson that you learned through everything that you've been through? And I think that your answer was, it's about being resourceful. It's about finding the inner resources. And so the other thing that I would ask you, though, is if you were going to talk to a person that really doesn't necessarily know what they want to do with their life, but they know that they want to be as successful as you, what kind of advice would you give that person?
I would say get in the journey of discovering your superpower.
Okay.
Of discovering your why. There's a reason and purpose why you're living and existing at this time, and finding out your why is it that you're living, is going to give you purpose and direction and happiness. It's the best kind of fulfillment that money can't buy. I tell people, when you die, when you transition, you don't get to take anything with you. So what is your why? I know that having financial stability is important, but there's a greater purpose than that, the reason why we're living and existing. And it's just really getting on the journey to discovering your true superpower, what you're really good at, and then just focusing on that, because ultimately that generates a ripple effect that is felt, and you touch so many people's lives with it.
First of all, I wholeheartedly agree with that. And I do remember you telling me the story of how your why actually changed over time. Would you mind sharing that with us, please?
Yes. So my why back then was trying to prove my caregiver wrong, because he told me that I would never amount to anything, that I would die in prison and with AIDS. Because I came out to him when he transitioned, when he died, I didn't have anybody to prove anything to. And I was like, I felt kind of lost, and I'm thinking, what is my why? What is the reason that I'm living? And at that time, I still had my salsa company, and it came to me that my why, this company that I have, is just a stepping stone for something greater.
Yes.
Yes, I'm able to touch people's lives by them tasting my products, but I really want to touch people's lives in a totally different way, in a totally powerful way, where they can, create change in their lives and be better people, better spiritual beings in this time. And that's what I'm doing now.
So your new why is to empower people to better their lives, to become better human beings and better spiritual beings. Is that fair to say?
It's to create products and services that inspire and transform people's lives.
Okay, you've got it down to a sentence, and you have that sentence. Just like I've got a mission statement, and I always encourage everybody to create a mission statement. And then I also encourage them to create a master goal and to memorize those down to one sentence, both the mission statement and the master goal. And it sounds like without even meeting me, you already had that down pat. So
yes. And create incantations, because incantations put you in that state.
Incantation. Well, how about this? As we're going to go ahead and log off. It looks like I don't see anybody that has any questions, so we're going to go ahead and log off. But before we do, would you do me the great service of repeating that incantation that you said for us earlier.
Oh, it goes like this: the wealth of the universe pours over my life. It flows to me in infinite. Ah, hold on.
That's all right. That's all right.
The wealth of the universe is pouring over my life. Its wealth flows through me in cosmic waves of abundance. All my needs, desires, and goals are met with by instant conscious mind. I am one with everything.
I love it.
There it is.
I love it. And I can see that when you say that,
My
you're
brain is tired.
saying it with emotion, though.
Yes.
I can feeling it. You're not just saying it, you're feeling it. When we do our affirmations,
Yes.
we got to feel it. It's about the emotion. And I love that. God, you are really amazing. I mean, we could stay here for hours and hours and talk, but instead of doing that, everybody, I'm gonna get the book. By the way, I'm getting off right now. As soon as we get done with this, I'm gonna order your book, and I want everybody to order the book and read the book. Let's talk about it. Let's live it. I am so excited. You are an absolutely amazing person, Maggie. And the other thing I want to tell everybody is Maggie is going to be on the Come Back Stronger TV show. I will let you know when that happens, but you're gonna get another chance to listen to Maggie, and I am just so thrilled that you came today. Thank you so much, Maggie.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
Wow, it's been an absolute pleasure. It has really been a pleasure. I cannot wait to see what everybody has to say about it. You have a wonderful evening, Maggie.
Thank you. You too.